Hello and welcome to a new episode of Launchcast, the Launchcode podcast. My name is Mikhil and I work with the marketing team here at Launchcode. The pandemic and supply chain challenges may have upset your plans for a new phone, a new car. In the recent years, those challenges have only multiplied in an already unorganized and complex process of industrial procurement. But you know what? Help may be on the way. More on that in a bit. Today I have with me Mike Jansen and Dan Hunt from ClearSource, a solution that aims to bring an e-commerce-like experience to procurement proposals. Also joining us today is Michael Kissinger, our own product owner, who has worked very closely with Mike and Dan and on bringing ClearSource to life. Welcome everyone. Welcome to Launchcast.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Mike and Dan, let's start from the start. You spent large parts of your careers dealing with contractors, procurement on industrial levels. Typically, what are the kind of challenges the industry faces?
Well, I think with the contractors, really it's not having line of sight to supply chain, right? You don't know who has what, where, when, especially during the pandemic, right? It was hard to tell where you were going to get your next batch of supplies from, right? And there aren't a lot of digital tools out there to be able to help people with that. Mm-hmm. It's a very carbon heavy business, mm-hmm. right? It's picking up the phone, it's calling people, it's dozens of emails, on a good day, that could balloon up to hundreds, mm-hmm. Trying to find things and delays. It can take, a couple of days for, something you've set out as a request for quotation to then turn into a completed order, mm-hmm. right? And so really what we're hoping to do is bring that down into hours, mm-hmm. and give people a lot of time back. So yeah, big challenge for contractors is time. And there's two other angles here. It's distributors and manufacturers that we're also helping out.
100%. The way that we're building this product is really not to address just one particular subset mm-hmm. of the industry. We want to build something that's immersive and expansive and helps all different facets of the industry. So Dan's point is 100% correct about the contractors. They're struggling to get products and to have them on their job sites in the time that they need them. But equally hard, and maybe even a bigger issue, is really the distribution side of things, right? So you've got all these companies that sell, different industrial supplies, whether it's welding supplies, electrical, plumbing, anything that kind of goes out to the trades. And typically an independent distributor doesn't have a lot of employees around that are able to have the bandwidth to manage a transition into an online space. So you think of a large industrial distributor who's got multiple branches, they're in multiple countries, all that sort of stuff. They'll have an e-commerce team that works for them. But some kind of a mom and pop style shop that, here in Calgary or in Western Canada that's got 5 employees, where do they find the bandwidth to figure out what are the tools that are available to them online, which is very limited, and most of those tools are built specifically for retail, not necessarily for the industrial market, like what or that B2B space that we're really targeting. And then once you get it up and running, once you found a solution, how do you manage this thing? How do you manage catalogs? How do you manage price files? How do you manage your customers that are flowing through beyond your normal day-to-day activities? So unless you're willing to add an asset, which again, most of these folks run at fairly low margins, trying to find people is a constraint in their businesses as it is. How do you do that? How do you survive in this market? So that's really one of the biggest things that we were trying to do when we came up with this idea and decided to do it. And then to Dan's point, there's a third sort of pillar or customer group, which are the manufacturers of these products. So think of, in the welding space, companies like Lincoln or Miller, in the safety space, 3M and Honeywell. All these companies, we're talking like big, manufacturing companies. What they all struggle with is line of sight to their customers. They all know who their distributor channels are that they sell through, but the actual end users that use their product, it's very, very difficult for them to understand and collect data, and really, I guess, connect and have a meaningful relationship with these customers, especially the little ones. A bigger contracting type company like, here in Western Canada, a company like a PCL or an Acon or something like that. Of course, all these folks have relationships with them, right? Because they're the big guys on the block. They've got sales teams that go and visit them. They help with product launches or product development, getting feedback, all of that sort of thing. But the little guy on the street, the company that has, 2 welding trucks running around and working on a gas plant, or, has, a single electrician that is working in a power plant or something like that. There's no relationship. They don't understand, what these folks are dealing with. And what our solution, again, helps to do is to create some of that data where we can give insights back to that, to that subset. So those are the main challenges I think that we're trying to fix.
That's the long answer that's kind of short, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
it's all good.
Because we could keep going on that for hours.
No, I think the idea here is to kind of put your thought processes out there in the world so that people know where you're coming from. You spoke about data, when you were talking earlier. So as part of your due diligence, and I'm sure you would have done that, jumping into a new product idea, what kind of numbers did you come across in terms of the challenges people faced,
Well, actually, something just recent from this morning. I think it was in a TechCrunch article I read. It was something like, or no, maybe it was Digital 360. Anyways, it was 74% of B2B purchasers want line of sight to availability online. It doesn't exist out there, right? And that type of thing. So that's just one piece. I mean, you talk about other things like the total addressable market. I mean, the space that we're talking about, industrial supply, is $1 trillion industry. In North America.
That still has procurement practices that are 30 years old.
Yeah.
That are 15 to 20 years behind what retail are.
I was beta testing this morning with somebody, and he was telling me how a lot of the process still involves using a paper catalog. Right? It's an industry that is due for a change. It always makes my jaw hit the floor when we talk to people in the industry about ClearSource, and they go, "That's a great idea. Yeah, you know what? I guess the internet is the wave of the future." And like, the future happened 15 years ago, at least, right?
Yeah.
It's actually the present right now, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk about some of the research that we did and in talking to contractors, the average contractor out there, and again, maybe we should take a step back. Like, who we consider a contractor is a tradesperson that owns their own business.
Right.
So think of a commercial electrician, a mechanical contractor, a welder, somebody like that runs their own small business, or maybe has a couple of people that work for them, something like that. These folks are spending 2 to 3 hours sometimes per day trying to find the products that they use to do their jobs.
Right.
So they go onto a job site, they take something apart or open something up or get contracted to do a piece of work, and then they have to figure out all the different things that they need to do that job, and then figure out where to get them from. That becomes their big struggle. So you think about it, the way these folks get paid is by billable hours. The more that they're on the tools, the more they're actually doing their job, the more that they're going to get paid. So if you take them off the tools and make them do something like essentially shopping, they're not getting paid for that. And some of these folks, this is meaningful dollars. Like, some of these guys get paid, or folks get paid $200-300 an hour. So now suddenly you're giving up $600 to $900 a day in revenue just to go out and shop for supplies. Where with the solution that we're building, we're trying to bring that down to 2 to 3 hours you can do in 10 to 15 minutes. So think of that meaningful revenue that suddenly you're bringing back into your business at that point. Just by taking one piece of your daily equation and taking it off of your plate and farming it out to someone else.
Even Michael, when we were kind of building this product, I'm pretty sure we were involved with a certain amount of research, whether it was desk research and even just trying to go into user stories and how people are going to use it. any insights from there that you have on the product?
Absolutely. So we did a lot of research with a number of contractors, a number of people that were doing it the old-fashioned way and were eager for a change. So from talking to them, we tried to really figure out, okay, what are they looking for? What's important to them? And really bring that to the forefront. So again, as you guys are saying, availability, the amount of product, being able to efficiently figure out what distributors have the product that you're looking for, what distributors carry that product. Because the current process is you have to, whether it's calling up distributors on the phone, sending out a cold email, trying to figure out, okay, who actually carries this product? And again, it just goes into all of these things. And really being able to distill that down to a really quick process, 10, 15 minutes, and you've sent off several different quotes for everything that you need and you're ready to get back to work, that's really powerful. And that was the main thing they were looking for, is that ease of use.
Yep.
Whatever I have seen of the tool, it looks, it has a very intuitive kind of an interface. It's very easy to use, very e-commerce-like, and that I think is a key to it. But really, what was the eureka moment? Wow, we have a great product idea at hand.
Well, let me answer that two ways. So the first is thank you, for noticing that it looks like e-commerce, because that's by design. If you look at our workforce, in this day and age, there's, I don't know, you used to know these numbers. Like it was 44% of procurement people in the trades at this point are now millennials. Well, millennials, that's our first digital-only generation, right? And they all come to their new jobs or into these spaces with a certain expectation of how they acquire products, and it's the way that they do it at home. It's how they get their things off of Amazon or through a Shopify account, with an online store, things like that. And then they show up at a job and are basically tasked with doing the same thing, but industrial supplies, and suddenly I got to pick up the phone and call somebody. Like, what is this all about? Like, I don't understand this.
Where's your telegraph?
Right, yeah. Exactly. Do I have to learn Morse code for this position? Like, what are we doing here? So that was very intentional in how we built that, and it's interesting. Dan's going through some beta testing right now, and some of the feedback we're getting is like, why is there no pricing on here? That is a common question, and that is also by design, because what ends up happening is a lot of the larger industrial distributors, these kind of giant incumbents that are out there. They try and shoehorn their business into, a WooCommerce, a Shopify, some type of e-commerce that was built for retail type solution, and they display pricing because that's what you expect, right? But everybody in the industry knows that that's not the price I pay. I call my person, I call an order desk, I call my salesperson, whoever that might be, and I find out my price. So what we wanted to do was really build the methodology or the modality that already exists in the industry into the tool itself. Like, why have this dummy pricing, I guess would be the best way to put it, that nobody actually uses? What's the point of that? You're kind of creating this artificial number that doesn't really mean anything to anybody. So that's the first way I would answer that question. The second is, it's really, you were talking about the eureka moment. So again, you mentioned before, we come from a lot of years of industrial supply. So I've been in the industry for, call it 25 years. Dan has been industry adjacent for those 25 years, but then he spent, as he puts it, a memorable 18 months in a tool crib north of Fort McMurray.
Felt like 25 years.
Yes, and really, kind of had to figure a lot of this stuff out, trial by fire, so to speak. But where the ClearSource idea really coalesced for us was, I recently did my MBA at Haskell here in Calgary. And one of the projects that they had us do was a digital readiness assessment of either the company you worked for or the industry you worked in. And so I had actually just left my position with another industrial supplier and thought, okay, well, I'll just do this on the entire industry, right? And I started, really sort of doing a deep dive on the technology tools that were there, and that's when I realized, like, we are 15 years behind where retail is. Because people still use paper PO books, they still use paper catalogs, they still, they pick up the phone for everything. People still have their fax number on their business cards when you're an industrial distributor. Like, nobody uses a fax machine anymore. So that's really where that eureka moment came from, was trying to understand, like, what are the pain points within the industry, and there's a lot of them. Some of these some of these industrial companies are very, very technologically advanced when it comes to making the products that they utilize. You think of in the welding space, air separation for the compressed gases that these guys use in a welding world. Like the technology that's there is unreal.
Right?
All the robots that are going into the welding space these days too. Incredible pieces of technology. But you'd still use a paper PO book to buy that robot. Like, I just don't get it, or I didn't get it. And that's really where the eureka moment came from, that, look, there is a pain point here that we have a skill set to be able to solve, obviously with the help of Launchcode, but, because we had formed a relationship with the team before that on a previous product. And that's really where it came from.
When I listen to you talk, one of the things that stands out for me is you just completed your MBA. You're working on ClearSource. You've done other stuff. It's a very different entrepreneurial journey that you've had. Speak about that in the sense how challenging has it been, and how insights into being an entrepreneur in this day and age.
Oh, it's easy. It's so easy. It's
that's what you have.
Private,
that's what you would have everyone believe, right?
Absolutely. It's private jets and lounges at the airport. And
I'm turning into an entrepreneur tomorrow.
Right?
And the venture capital money that just gets thrown at you,
right?
Oh,
they just pour it there's just a link to my bank account that it just keeps coming in from.
Yeah.
No, so I was lucky that I came from an entrepreneurial family. Both my grandfathers had machine shops in southern Manitoba when I was younger, so this is kind of where I got a taste for the industrial world as well. My dad's had a couple of companies as I grew up. I mean, heck, I put for my undergrad degree, I put myself through university by running I had my own DJ company.
Oh wow!
We DJ'd staff parties and weddings and frat parties and stuff like that. And that's how I paid for my tuition, or at least a chunk of it. Didn't quite cover my beer budget, but that's a totally different podcast. So I guess in a sense I knew what I was getting into before I convinced Dan to come along on this roller coaster, because it's not the easiest thing in the world. It's a lot of the buck stops with us, really. It literally, both from a monetary perspective as well as we have to figure out what our customers want, what they expect from us, and really there's no structure for that. There's no checklist or playlist as to how to do this. And how do you pay the bills? How do you keep the lights on, especially when you don't have revenue yet, because you're still figuring out the product and trying to do that. And then given the fact that neither Dan or I has a technology background either, I mean, we become really, really reliant on our partners, in this case, Launchcode, to help us with that sort of stuff. And thankfully they've done a halfway decent job. So, but no, it's not all. I mean. You watch some of these shows on TV like Silicon Valley and stuff like that, and they make it, sure, there's a bit of a jokey part to it, but, they make it seem like it's a very, it's a simple road. It's all glamorous. You're constantly doing all these amazing things, which, sure, there are some really cool things that we get to do, like sit on a podcast like this, right? This isn't, this is something I never got invited to when, Dan was running Tool Cribs, and I was his boss. Like, that just didn't happen. Now we get to do a little bit more of this, but it takes a lot of work to get to the point where you can sit in a chair like this and have these types of conversations and speak intelligently about the industry that you're trying to address and help fix.
Yeah, but I mean, if I could say to anybody who wants to go and do this kind of thing, go and do it. I mean, the feeling is amazing to be able to get up in the morning and self-direct, right? You're not beholden to anybody else other than,
your wife.
Well, yeah, my wife or you, because and I'm no stranger to this type of relationship, right? Mike and I have been friends for 40 years. My wife and I used to work in radio together. We did morning shows together for about about 15 years.
Wow.
And so, kind of being joined at the hip like that with somebody that you've got a really, deep connection with is that's a, man, I tell you, there's no other great feeling like that, when you've got somebody that you share, just about everything with, that you can go and partner with and march forward and accomplish things. It's great. So.
I will say, to address the entrepreneurship though, a lot of people think that they have to do this on their own, and that's a terrible idea. Get yourself a co-founder. It doesn't have to be someone who's a lifelong friend, but get somebody who complements your skill set. That's one thing that Dan and I, I did my MBA and all that kind of stuff. I've got a pretty decent business background. Dan's got and the industrial supply piece. Dan's got a totally different background than I do, you know. And the two of us complement each other. You know, we can bounce each other ideas off each other all day long. And you know what I think is the correct path forward, he may have a totally different perspective on that I'd never thought of, and vice versa. Like we're the same, you know, way in that we solicit feedback from each other on that. You know, sometimes I'm not as receptive as I probably should be.
Yeah, likewise.
But I definitely see a theme in this team here. Musician, DJ, you've done radio shows. Well, it's quite a complementing team.
There's a creative aspect that goes into this,
Absolutely.
right? You know, the problem solving that you need to be able to do and think on your feet, and you know, even when we're doing things like sprint reviews with Michael, and you know, we're giving feedback from the field, he needs to take and internalize that and come up with ideas that, you know, from a technological standpoint can help address that. And I think we all work pretty well that way together. So
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely.
It was really nice. What do you think are the features that set ClearSource apart? Like, and this is for all three of you. You guys can speak from the industry standpoint and you from the product standpoint.
sure.
It matches business flow, right?
The better way to say that is the RFQ engine.
Yeah, the RFQ engine. Yeah, it mimics.
Trademark ClearSource.
You think?
Oh, you should probably.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it matches the way business works right now, right? If you look at the very manual process right now, it's pick up the phone, call a place, get a quote. They send you the quote. You know, you approve it and then you buy it, right? And you'll probably duplicate that a few times because some places have that, you know, 3 bids and a buy policy, right? And so what sets us apart is that we give contractors the ability to do just that, but you really only have to do it one time. And then it sends out those multiple RFQs to your favorite distributors so you can get that pricing and availability back, and then you can quickly make your purchase. It handles the fulfillment and you know, some of the payment options as well, and really takes a lot of the stress off of the contractors for having to call around and do all that very carbon heavy stuff, but also the order desks at the distributors, who again are tied up in that very carbon heavy, you know, thing that takes up a lot of their day, which is just a lot of the, honestly, it can be the crappy part of the job, right? Is just having to play a game of telephone, right? Okay, I wrote this thing down, and I wrote I took the information down incorrectly, and now there's errors, and you know, just eliminating all of that stuff.
Well, and to expand on that too, from the distributor side of things, I mean, to go back to my earlier point about how it's really tough for them to have the bandwidth to set up an online store, that's one of the things that we completely take away, because product catalogs, we manage all that. That's all preloaded from the manufacturer. So really, if you're an industrial distributor that wants to set up an online space, you just come to us and tell us the brands you carry, and it's a couple of clicks. You know, if there's any one of our distributor customers, it takes a lot of work. It's a ton of effort. That's why we're charging you for it. It's my breaking the fourth wall thing there. But no, it's super simple. We just there's a quick affiliation, and all of a sudden, boom! Rather than you having to take every individual product that you carry and set it up on your pre-made template, you know, type store, we just click a couple buttons and boom, you're up and running. Like I can literally have a distributor trained up and running within a day. As opposed to, you know, you think of like a Shopify integrator who's going to come and build you a custom store. Sometimes that's 6 to 9 months and thousands of dollars. So that to me is a big differential feature for us too.
Yeah, I guess, you know, for people to kind of wrap their heads around it, it's like if somebody came to you and said, hey, I've got a Shopify store, but I've got all the products preloaded that you might possibly carry or ever think of carrying. Oh, yeah, okay, that's a huge time saver right there.
Michael, from product perspective, what do you think is what stands out in ClearSource?
I think the big thing that stands out the most is just how efficient and convenient it is for the users who are going into it. So typically right now, of course, we try to aim it after just a typical e-commerce experience. That's what millennials know. That's the way they're doing business. However, one of the things that they can't just do is, you know, go and set up a Shopify, because the workflow is fundamentally different. You don't have the pricing. You're not just adding it to your cart, check out, pay with your credit card, and away you go. And so one of the things that really stands out from a product standpoint is marrying the old way, or not the old way, but the way the industry works, which really is the RFQ process, the bidding process, and the purchasing process with that e-commerce platform, and finding kind of the perfect marriage of those two items, so that anyone who is from an older generation can come in, they're familiar with how it works, that follows their expectations. The new millennials can come in and also be comfortable and effective in the same space on the same platform.
So just clarifying for our audiences, so this is essentially an RFQ platform where people come in looking for quotations, not essentially. That's why you don't have prices on the products.
Call it e-procurement rather than e-commerce.
Right.
Like that's, I think, the industry term that is really starting to take hold, is this concept of e-procurement. Now, there are a lot of tools like that are built into, like, say, an ERP system, right? You know, we talked about larger contractors before. SAP has this built right into their system where they can go out and generate bids and all that sort of stuff. But again, to address those small contractors, that's really our target audience, they can't afford SAP, nor is it even practical for them to run their businesses on it. I mean, these are folks who, you know, are still running their businesses, you know, if they're online at all, it's through like QuickBooks Online, maybe an Excel spreadsheet. You know, a lot of folks, and I don't want to gender stereotype, but a lot of times it's a guy in the field who's doing the work, and it's his wife back in the kitchen, you know, who's got a shoebox full of receipts and is trying to manage the business. That's just the way that a lot of times this works. Whereas what we're trying to do is bring a little bit more sophistication, some better tools to bear. I mean, when we first started talking to Robbie about this idea, really the idea was a vendor management system, which is what it's going to eventually evolve into. We just decided to build this marketplace into it because it just makes so much sense and makes it so much easier for the contractor. But you know, ultimately it becomes an accounting tool, becomes a way for them to keep track of invoices so that they can, you know, maximize their returns at tax time. It's just, there's so many different efficiency pieces that we can build into this platform as it grows.
And I think the contractor industry especially needs this, right? I mean, you got a bunch of people who come out of school, you know, and to really kind of dumb it down, you know, they know how to turn a wrench or you know, you know, spot weld something, right? You know what I mean? They have a skill set there.
Says the guy who's never welded in his life. There you go. That's why he's like,
Right?
I'm going to spot weld something.
Yeah, exactly. So, but they're not coming out of school with any sort of business acumen, right? Or at least very little. And we hear and we know from talking to some of the schools that they're starting to pivot towards that. But when this tool also brings those advantages to bear, you know, being able to help with accounting and those sorts of things, again, it's just making people's jobs easier. We won our very first industry award at Buildex here in Calgary in October, and there was a line that came up in one of the panels there about growing and improving the industry, and the crux of it was we just need to make the job suck less, right, in order to get more people to come into it. And so really it's sort of the value that we're bringing is taking those admin pieces out and making the job suck less, right?
I hope significantly less.
Yeah, well, us too, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So what's the current state of the product? You mentioned beta testings earlier in the conversation. What's the current state of the product?
Yeah, so we did a formal launch back in September. I mean, we're I don't know when this is going to come out, probably January. We're recording all this in December, but the product came out in September. We realized pretty quickly that we had made a couple of workflow errors in how we thought about a couple of things. So we obviously came back to Michael and the team and you know, tried to quickly determine a best path forward, and then they went to work on fixing all those things, which then uncovered a few extra bugs in the system of just how to get, I don't know if it was like logic pieces or what, to try and get them to work correctly. All of that finally got completed last week, so that got deployed into our production status, or our production state over the weekend, and so now Dan is actively working on some beta testing with some early contractors. But we've got 14 distributors on the platform at this point. Like, they're all ready to go. They're itching to sell products. So now it's just a matter of us taking our wait list, loading them on, really making sure that we haven't, and I mean, obviously there's always room to grow. There's room to get better in our product flows and our processes. And we're going to learn a ton over this next, call it 4 to 6 weeks of, what do people actually think of the product? Because, early testing and early feedback has all been really positive. But now that people are going to actually start putting some purchases through, this is where the rubber hits the road. So.
Michael, in terms of technologies, and I know Mike spoke about some of the workflow errors and things like that. In terms of technologies, what's the kind of work that's gone into building ClearSource?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're using a really modern tech stack. We're using React for the front end, Node for the back end, and one of the things that is so powerful about these tools is that they allow the maximum amount of flexibility. So a lot of people, when they're going into the e-commerce space, they'll partner up with Shopify. They'll use those tools that exist, but it doesn't allow flexibility for anything other than just a very cookie-cutter e-commerce platform. And as they have said, ClearSource falls very much outside of that. So there are a number of complexities that we had to account for, and the big one is just the vastness of the industry. There's, potentially millions and millions of products that need to get uploaded onto this platform and will be uploaded onto this platform. There are thousands and thousands of distributors that are going to be coming onto the platform in the future. So
I love your confidence in that. That's fantastic.
But the main point is we needed to think about ways that we could effectively have that scale. One of the big reasons why the technology industry, is growing and is such a popular industry to be in is just due to the power of scale. So if we're creating a system where you guys can onload, as you said, right now the process, you can get a distributor uploaded, few clicks to load in what products they carry, maybe upload some extra product Excel forms if they don't have their products in there, and then they're up and running and ready to go. It's a very far cry from, if they have to go in, manually put in one by one each product for each distributor, that just doesn't scale well.
Right.
So the biggest challenge is we're figuring out how to build out this platform in such a way that allowed that flexibility and the speed of being able to scale up.
So just an idea, how many products are there in the database right now, saying ClearSource?
I think on the live site, we just passed 10,000.
Okay.
So, and that's, we're just scratching the surface. We're literally starting in one vertical, which is welding. So we haven't even touched really safety yet. We haven't really touched electrical, plumbing. Like there's a lot of different places that we can go from this. And I would say out of the welding products that are out there, we're maybe 1%. So, to Michael's point, literally millions is what you can hit. If anybody who's familiar with the space and you go back to the old school catalogs, they're bigger than a phone book. And for people who don't remember what a phone book was, that was where all people's telephone numbers used to be in this printed book that you'd get on your porch once a year. But like an industrial supply catalog, they're huge.
Yeah.
The company that Dan and I worked together with, we had these big books, that you would just they would sit on your order desk or on your counter, and people would come in and they'd flip through to the page where they found the thing. Literally, that's still how it's done in some places. And then the sales side of that too. All of the people that work there have to become knowledgeable about that catalog. Whereas with digital tools, it becomes that much easier, right? You can find things faster, you're more efficient with it, you can become more knowledgeable about things quicker as well, about the types of products and what they do and how to acquire them.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing what you guys have been building and working on. The new year is just around the corner. It's 2023. What plans for 2023 in terms of features, vision for your business? What is up on the horizon?
Well, keep loading product, keep bringing customers on. We'll have what we're calling a white label solution that we're going to have for our distributor partners to get them to essentially have their own bespoke online store, right? That they can send their regular customers to and not expose them to the marketplace, right? So that's going to be a big piece that we'll have launched here in the next little bit.
Yep. You think of a full year next year. It's broader selection of products, obviously. It's potentially broader geographies. You know, we're really launching in Canada first. You know, the intent is to knock the burrs off here and then really make sure we've got a good, robust product. Everything works good. You know, everything's debugged, all that. And then, I mean, we've got big plans to go into other industry verticals, other countries, because at the end of the day, really doesn't matter what part of the world you're in. Everybody kind of buys these supplies in a pretty similar manner. You know, so really language becomes our only problem. You know, some of the maybe the smaller variances in how business is conducted there, but you know, this tool can be universal.
Interesting times in internet and in tech, like you said, been around 15 years, and yet these are really exciting times. So thanks a lot to you guys for sharing your story and, you know, talking to us on Launchcast. I think the audiences, our viewers, are going to get some amazing insights into not only entrepreneurship but also specific business that you're in and your products. So thanks a lot for your time, and really great having you.
We're done already.
Yeah.
Oh, we could go on and on, but
He could, believe me.
I absolutely believe you.
Yeah.
But thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot for.
No, it was a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
The pleasure's all ours. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching us. Do not forget to like, comment, and share this video. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube so you don't miss any of our new episodes. Also, subscribe to our bi-monthly newsletter, Launch Post, on our LinkedIn page. We'll reach your inboxes on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of every month with news from the tech world and even share some of our work. Do follow us on other social channels for more tech industry content. Until next time, thanks a lot.